On this episode, episode 45, we have a lot of questions. Let's just go ahead and get into it. Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Blake Rodriguez with Dream Come True K9, and this is episode 45 of Dog Behavior Question Tuesday. Took a little bit of a hiatus. I was in California for a week speaking at the IACP conference. I was presenting there in front of all other dog trainers. Got back here for a little and then headed straight over to Texas. I was in San Antonio for a bit, then Austin. Got back yesterday, and I know you guys have a lot of questions, so we apologize, but we're here to give them to you really quickly before we jump into things. Introduce the pack. We'll start over here. We have Samson, we have Soko, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, aka Kareem. We have, oh my gosh, I always forget his name, Norman. We have Julieta, Vicente, Maya. I call her Vienna. She's like my little Vienna sausage, but her name is Matilda. Gonna come on over here. We have my main man, Leo. We have Maggie, the bully, Maxwell, and Copper. So nice little group. Let's go ahead and get into this. Load these comments really quickly. Really quick, for those of you guys that are new to this and you're wondering how to figure out how to ask your questions, follow us on Instagram. Every somewhere around Friday to Saturday, we have a post that will say, ask your dog behavior question here. If you comment within those questions, we will answer it for the episode on Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. Sometimes we film it on Monday. Usually we film it on Tuesday and it goes up late night style tonight. So let's jump into it. First one is from Tom QT. Hi there, how do I stop my dog from staring at light reflections and shadows? Also, why does she push her food bowl away? Thanks. Well, first off, you're looking at a neurotic kind of OCD obsession, which should be the same thing as squirrels. So you should basically treat it the same way. Definitely don't mess around with laser pointers and think that that stuff is cute and kind of introduce that to her. You have to teach her impulse control. That's super important. You have to make sure the dog knows leash pressure so you can be able to manipulate and control the head. That way when you're asking her not to do that, you're not just jumping into correcting her, and you're actually spending her time showing her what you'd rather be doing. So sometimes that teaching has to be done outside of the problem. And then eventually, once you spend enough time teaching the dog what to do, you can then go into just correcting them a little bit more firm and saying, don't do that, do this. But usually once you spend time teaching the dog what to do, it's easy to say, don't do that, and get them to focus on doing something else. You really can't tell them to not do that and do something else when you haven't spent time or enough time showing them what you'd rather them do instead, because it's already gonna be enough of a challenge. So you wanna take it step by step. I would suggest going to our website, looking at the Dog Behavior Question Tuesday index that we have on our blog page, and taking advantage of all the questions and answers that have ever been asked and answered from episode 1 all the way up to soon, which will be 45. I think we have it at 44 at the moment. As far as the food bowl, dogs can be a little bit pushy if they're not kind of used to working for their food. If you're just handing them the food bowl, I would suggest getting used to working the dog for their food, and you could even use that bowl to have them do something and then yes them or good them, and they might miss a little bit or kind of say, I'm not interested in it, but eventually they're gonna realize that it's priority and you'll be able to eliminate that behavior. We have a lot of videos. I actually just posted one on our YouTube page where you can see how we utilize markers. If you do it that way, but use the food bowl instead and pull it away and keep doing that, eventually that behavior will be non-existent. The big guy over here, the big Great Dane, started doing that as well, and he eats 5 cups per meal, 10 cups per day. So when we're doing that, we're not doing it by handfuls, we're doing it by the bowl, and he eventually got over it really, really easily, really quickly as well. Charlotte, Beast the dog, awesome. This is Charlotte from the group class. Hi, my dog Charlotte, who has participated in your group training course and boarded overnight a few times, is typically okay when meeting dogs one-on-one during a walk. I'm only at 20% battery life, so I gotta go, guys. Today we walked by a dog park and saw that there was only one dog inside. They smelled each other through the fence, and Charlotte did not seem particularly interested, so we thought we could bring her into the dog park for a test run. Unfortunately, the minute she went through the gate, she started chasing the other dog and wouldn't answer to her name. Needless to say, we're not bringing her to the dog park anytime soon. What could we have done to have had a better outcome? This is a great question. A couple of things. One, in an ideal situation, that other dog would be a little bit of a dog that you know. The problem was you took too much of a gamble, and you went into a 50-50 situation that was 100% up to the dogs, that if it went south, you weren't in a position to have an influence or be able to follow through with what you want. And that's the big problem with a lot of training today. Even people that err on the better side of things is they're spending time teaching the dog what to do, but they're not spending enough time proofing behaviors. So basically what happened is you took a risk, you've worked on some recall and some stuff off to the side, but you haven't done it in a distraction or a scenario or situation that is this much of a challenge for the dog with this type of competing motivator. And once adrenaline rose, you were non-existent. So in that situation, there's a couple things that you could have done. If you knew the dog and you were in a setting where you could have kept a leash on and you were working on remote collar stuff, you're able to ask for something, the dog's not listening, you can follow through if the dog was on a long line and get the behavior. What I probably would have done instead, assuming that I knew that we weren't at that stage, I would have utilized the leash, maybe a long line, let her smell at the gate, and then with remote and or leash or just leash, practice calling her off and maybe working her for her meals. You might not necessarily need to work her for her meals, but so that she can be interested in something, get called off. Be interested in something, get called off. See a spike in adrenaline, a spike in excitement and behavior, see that because it was a little more dull, but then that happened and then get called off. It's one thing for me to go into a club when it's like daytime and be like, oh yeah, seems like a cool place, whatever. Like I don't know if I'm gonna go out tonight, and then I drive by it, and that club is I see it with like the liveliness in it and like the nightlife, and I go, holy cow! All of a sudden, it's that much more appetizing to me, or appealing rather, right? So that was the issue. You put yourself in a position where it was a risk, and you were in no position to have a say or influence if it went south. And that's what you have to do. You have to have that backup just in case. Don't anticipate for a situation, but be prepared in the event that it might happen. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Let's see, I asked Jesus, instead of making my dog work for her food, could I use treats instead? By the time I get home from work, she has already eaten and not interested in her food. Well, one, by the time you get home from work, stop leaving food there. Food should come from you only. Then you can work her for her food. You could work her for treats, but it's not going to be the same. There's a couple of risks. You might have a dog that will work for a little bit, but it's not a necessity, so they'll get full really quick. You're going to run the risk of a dog having an upset stomach and having the runs if you're treating your dog to death, and you're going to run the risk of obesity too because your dog is eating and then working just for treats, right? So just stop leaving the food bowl down, and when you come home, it's time to work for food. Right? It only takes 10 minutes. It's not that long.
I think it's safe to assume that he probably works late and that his wife might feed him or something.
So all right, that's a good point. So you're mic'd up, right? Okay. In that case, what you can do is like you can work the dog, let your wife or your roommate or whoever see how to do it and have them do it. And if you can't and you got to work the dog a little bit later, then work the dog a little bit later, or work the dog for more during the day, and then that portion could be skipped. You can work the dog for the treats, but I personally wouldn't suggest it long term. But yeah, you totally can if you'd like to. It's just those are the pros and cons, okay? But my dog will eat at like pretty much any time. Like I fed him later and stuff. I mean, it's good to get in a nice cycle, but your dog will also adapt to your cycle if that's consistent as well, all right? Let's see. Strut your Mutko. How do you stay calm and assertive when dealing with extremely difficult dogs on extremely difficult days? You want to know what? There's really, unless you have an answer, there's really no answer but experience, man. You got to mess up and make mistakes and do good things and just don't forget to breathe, as silly as that sounds. You know what I mean? And just take your time, and experience teaches you how to kind of get through that. You know, it's almost like I have to think about hockey, or I guess jiu-jitsu, since I've been playing hockey for a while. Jiu-jitsu is fairly new to me. The first time I started sparring or rolling, I would gas out from the first roll, which was like 5 minutes, and it was just like I was giving it my all. Eventually, you learn how to when to use your strength and how to breathe properly and how to do all these things. And I can roll 5 to 6 minute rolls, have a 30 second break to 1 minute maybe, go to the next one and just keep going. So you adapt with experience. Anthony, dude, I'm only reading this first one because you asked literally more questions and everything together. So I'm gonna give you the best I can. Hey Blake and crew, learning a lot from you guys and Dog Behavior Question Tuesday. My dog has gone through remote collar training with another company and I was told to repeat the command instead of telling the dog no. Will this achieve the same results as your system? Not opposed to saying no, just would like to know why you do this. One of my dogs is doing well with leash pressure and prong and needs little help for the leash using remote and leash. Can you phase out prong and just use e-collar when teaching? That's one question. That's another question. When teaching recall, do you teach a follow along with a formal recall? And then another question, do you teach all commands with prong first? Or could you start recall with just e-collar if the dog has a good understanding of pressure off? Thanks so much. Sorry for the essay and congrats on all your success. Okay, let's start with the first one. My dog with a collar, blah, blah, blah. Repeating the command versus saying no. The problem with repeating the command is you devalue the command. It becomes white noise. You're saying something, and if you want to get scientific, look at Pavlov and what the Bell experiments taught. To teach a conditioned response, the thing that the dog knows least must come first in the sequence. So if you're saying down, and then you're using a remote and leash, and the dog is not doing it, and you're repeating down after, studies show, science shows that what comes after that stuff is going to be overshadowed by what comes first. So if I'm telling my dog down, but I'm doing this and then saying down, doing this and then saying down, the down, the word itself, I might get a dog to down, but the word itself is not taught. So if I want to teach that, and I already know that this works or pulling on the leash works, that's gonna come last, because that's the additional information. Those are the training wheels. So I will say down, then I will do that. I will say down, then I will do it. I will say down, then I will do it. And I don't repeat it. By the time we get to naming it, the dog is already a rock star at doing it. You see what I mean? So we're teaching the behaviors, and then when the dog is really, really kicking ass doing it, we go, hey, you know that thing you've been doing for like a week? That's called down. That's called place. So now I know by the time I say down, or I say place, or I say here, I can get the dog to do it, and I never have to repeat myself. Nope is once the dog's already really good at doing it. Nope means stop doing what you're about to do and go back to doing what you were doing. So an important thing about nope is that the dog had to have been successful prior to that, and that's why we use that system. You can get the dog to do it, but you're not going to get the dog to learn the word if you're just repeating it. That's somebody that's just kind of winging it and isn't actually following like the science. So I'm not a super scientific guy. Dog training is not rocket science, but at the same time, it's important to know that stuff. There's a lot of value to understanding the order of sequence. The sequence of order of sequence, order of sequence. It's very important that you do it that way. You could test it out and you'll see it's gonna be day and night, right? That's the very reason why like a lot of dogs know down, but if you have shopping bags and you're walking at a Trader Joe's and the one day happens where you tell your dog down, but you don't use any body language or leash and anything, the dog's gonna be like, I don't know what you're saying, all right? So test it out. Dogs are creatures of pattern. They learn the pattern. You know what I mean? I guess let me jump into this really quickly. That's why like you can tell a dog to sit and stay, walk over here, turn around and call them, and you're like, oh wow, my dog stays and then my dog recalls. Then you do it, and on like the 5th time, you tell your dog to go over there, sit and stay. You walk over here, and then when you turn around expecting to call the dog's already in front of you, because the dog learned the pattern of what comes first. And then eventually the dog goes, oh, I don't need the rest of the information. I don't need to wait for you to call me. I know what's gonna happen. And we need to be able to take advantage of that, right? And that's the studies of Pavlov with the bell and food, with the bell and electrocution, and we're not talking remote collar, we're talking about electrocution, is what teaches that. And that's what taught us that. It also taught us that rewards and punishment technically don't have to come right away if you utilize markers. The problem is your word is your bell or your marker, but you're not teaching it in a way where it can become a conditioned response. no different than the way a gazelle could be downwind of a lion, smell that lion, and know to run because they know what happens next. Because the smell of the lion comes first, even though the smell of the lion is not what's doing the damage to the gazelle, the claws and the teeth are, but the dog or the gazelle learns that, right? If it was claws, teeth, and then the smell of a lion came after, there would be no association, right? Cool. Oh wait, you got like 30 questions. Let me see. My dog is doing well with leash pressure and prong and needs a little help with the leash. Can you phase out prong just using e-collar? Yeah, you can do it, but again, the sequence. This all answers your questions. The order of sequence works, but there's a way to gamble. So when you end up phasing something out, you're trying it once without it, and then you're going back to helping with it. Then you're trying it twice without it, and you're going back to helping with it, and you start doing it gambling like 1 out of 10, then 2 times out of 10. If the dog is successful doing it that one time, you go back to helping the information, and little by little, the dog learns it without it. When teaching recall, do you teach a follow along with a formal command? We teach let's go and we teach here. Here is a very specific come in, sit, and watch, which means you said you watch all the videos, but you got to really watch them because a lot of this stuff is already answered. Sit here, look into me, and that's it. And then let's go is a very loose form of recall. You can just kind of follow along. When I'm done with that recall, I can yes the dog, or I can let's go and give them an additional command. But that here is come in here, sit, and wait for what's next, right? And last but not least, do you teach all commands with prong first, or could you start teaching with e-collar? Well, we teach all commands with body language first. Body language, hand is an extension of food, because we work dogs for food, and or hand is an extension of leash. My hand is an extension of my body, so that's all flowing. Jumping into remote collar by itself without body and flow, without teaching that stuff, you can do it, but you're gonna get choppiness, and you're gonna get a dog that he may catch on and he may not. If you wanna sure shot it, teach what the dog should be following and get the dog to follow something like your body and your movement first. So by the time you jump to the remote, if you're gonna skip things, which I don't suggest or recommend, but it can be done, that's the question. The dog already is dialed in with you and knows what to do. So if you're pressing it, the dog knows what to do. The problem with jumping onto a remote is you're gonna go into like more force and pressure and like do this rather than getting kind of a spunky kind of dog. And you'll see what I mean by that. We did a YouTube video where you can see the use of markers and working a dog for food before and after, and it's literally day and night. So check that out and slow things down. It really seems to me like you're rushing things. And these are tools that are phenomenal tools, but they have a bad rap because people use them as shortcuts prior to modifying their vehicle for off-road use. You're trying to jump into these shortcuts and the roads are super, super bumpy, and you're running the risk of doing it in a Toyota Prius versus like a Jeep Wrangler. You know what I mean? So you have to make sure that you have that Jeep Wrangler prior to doing that. Amanda O'Keefe, my dog is a 5.5-month-old or 5.5-old male Great Dane who seems to growl and want to mouth us when we tell him no. The more you say no, the more he gets driven to want to bite us. Here's the catch. Sometimes after a few no's, he starts to get a mini boner. Is he acting out because of hormones? No, he's not. I don't want to blame solely on hormones. You shouldn't, but it seems to be a common factor. Is this a sign, or may he have a dominance issue in the future, or is there an easier way to help? Yeah, teach a dog what no means. You're expecting the dog to understand what no means, and you've never actually taught it, right? So I can't really go into detail with this because it's a good question, but it's a question that can easily be answered if you took the time to kind of go through these things. Before you teach no, teach a dog what you'd rather like. You're kind of winging it, and the dog doesn't know any tools. The dog probably has way too much freedom. It's kind of all over you here, all over there. The dog doesn't know leash pressure. You probably don't work the dog for food. The dog doesn't know commands, right? The dog doesn't know how to follow your body and stuff. And all those things are your tools that are going to help you to address problems and teach things. Working a dog for food, teaching the dog that their choices matter. You're living a life with the dog right now where the dog's choices doesn't matter. So you need to take a couple steps back and go into kind of learning that. Do you want to get into detail a little bit with that by any chance? Did you read it or you? I mean, I don't want to come across like mean and like short it, but like these are questions that if you watch the stuff that we do and the work that we do on Instagram, on Facebook, on Periscope, even just Dog Behavior Question Tuesday alone, and you went through, like you wouldn't have asked the questions that you did. I don't mean to be like, you know, like, oh, these are like silly, but I mean, I think they're just newer questions. They're innocently asked, but you just have to teach a dog no. It's not that no doesn't work. It's that your dog doesn't know what no is.
Yeah, I think it's easier too, like with puppies, I tell people all the time, it's like your dog wants to be played, wants to be pet, wants affection. It's like teach your dogs what to do for just that, like in the house, and like it makes things a lot really simple.
Yeah, your dog's probably getting affection and hasn't earned it. Your dog is probably getting like a lot of things that you're just giving it to him. And the reality is your dog would have gotten that whether he was good or not, whether he was bad or good. Those things are a part of his life either way. And when that's the case, your dog has no reason to pay attention to you because he gets what he wants anyway. You see what I mean? He gets your affection, he gets your love, he gets, I'm just gonna swap because I'm gonna put this on a charger for you guys. He gets food, he gets this, he can pee on the rug, he can pee on the carpet, he can lunge at someone's face, he can growl, he can bite you, and right after, you're still gonna pet him as you tell him no, you're still gonna feed him, you're still gonna let him up on the bed, you're still gonna do this, you're still gonna do that. So basically, no matter what he does, he gets what he wants anyway. Dogs were bred to work alongside man for specific jobs and tasks, with the exception of maybe the French Bulldog that was purely like designed to just for like human, like selfish reasons and just the traits, the physical features. The problem is we don't have those jobs for them today. To add to it, you now have dogs that come home and don't have to work for anything because we feel bad for them. We give them what they want when they want. So a dog basically is saying, you mean I get these things no matter what? Like, well, then why do they have to listen? If I get paid no matter what, I never have to go to work. If there's no consequences in life, both good and bad, if like I got good stuff regardless of whether I was a jerk, a nice guy, did a great job or not, if I got punishment and correction regardless of whether I was good or bad, then my behavior doesn't matter, right? So in reality, you're undomesticating your dog because you're teaching him to to do what he wants, because what he does doesn't affect what he gets and doesn't get, if that makes sense, right? So that's pretty much that. Anything you got to add to that?
No, yeah, it's pretty much what says that they need to learn that their choices matter, and this.
They have to learn that choices matter. Yeah.
I think you sort of came off as a little mean, just because this is like the way we work dogs. It's like it's a non-issue.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Like not something
that's
you have
a good
to
point.
address.
Yeah, so that's
like
what I mean. I didn't mean. You can zoom in a little more too, because I know like we don't really necessarily need them now. And then actually, I should probably see. I can't even get up. Can you do me a favor? Could you down this guy for me? And that's the thing that's really important. When you do these things, the questions that you're asking are a non-issue. That's simply put. That's perfect. I'm so glad that you worded it that way. Wanda Slust. Hi, Blake. My dog is a Bernese, and every time we go out for a walk, there's someone that wants to pet or take pictures with him because he's a rare breed here in Brazil. He is a very insecure dog and hates to be touched by strangers. Should I just say, please don't touch him to people, or is there something I can do to make him like this kind of approach? It's the exact thing that we're doing with this guy. He's a celebrity. Everywhere he goes, people are always. You have to be able to advocate for your dog. You have to be okay with interrupting. Oh, no, sorry, he's in training, and do it in a way where he feels that you can advocate and you can protect him and he doesn't have to worry, right? Once you get there, there's a couple other things you can do. You can get a vest that says working dog or dog in training, please don't pet, which helps a little bit. And then also you have to make sure that like people aren't petting him unless you're giving them permission. In the early stages, I would say the only people that should be petting the dog, depending on where they are people that you're familiar with, people that you can coach. You've done some basic counter conditioning where with friends of your own or yourself, where he understands, look, if you do this, then you can get this and stuff. And the thing that you're gonna give is something that they actually want, which is very, very important. And then, hey, so even here, like this dynamic right here, what's happening is he's nervous too, because it's the same thing, because people will point and be like, oh my gosh, he's just that. So I don't know if you were able to hear, but there was a little bit of like a growl and a oof. So we have to correct that at this point, but also let him know the reason I'm correcting you here is because they're not a threat at this point. If they were, I would be the one that, Soko, place, I would be the one that addresses the issue, right? So the more a dog can trust you, the more a dog can understand that, the less a dog has to worry, one, and then two, it puts you in a position that when you get concern out of the way, a dog is willing to try more. And then that's when you try down. That's when you try with friends, and that's when you work with people that can be coached. But random strangers in the street, teach him that he can walk through life and be okay with it, okay? Really, really important. Let's see where we are here. Good. Good. Hey. Good. See, so here I have to coach dogs because I'm going to be a little bit mean. This woman doesn't get the picture, even though it says dogs in training, and she's selfishly trying to take pictures, even though these dogs are in training, so I kind of have to help. But it's innocently done because society, we raise them the wrong way, right? So it's lucky we had a good group that was fine because it only takes one dog to throw it off, and then they charge, and then these dogs get into fights, and then she, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I just selfishly wanted to take the picture. Oh, they can't be pet right now? Dogs in training, are they aggressive? It's like those are things that maybe we should have asked before, right? Am I being a jerk on this episode?
I don't know, maybe
A little bit? I'm just a mean guy, that's it, right?
like a subtle tone.
It's a little subtle tone. Yeah, so hopefully that helps. If you follow us on Facebook, on Periscope, on Instagram, you'll see what we've been doing with him. We do Instagram stories, so some of those have been gone, but you're going to start to see a little bit more work of what we're doing with him, and that will help you. Next one, Espinology. Do you only work in Manhattan? No, we are worldwide. Just got back from California. I was in Hong Kong earlier this year. Just got back from Texas as well. I was in Florida earlier in the year also, so we're all over. In February, I'm doing a seminar in Florida. In June, I'm doing one in New Hampshire. In July, I'm doing one in Niagara, New York. Then in October, I think we're going back to New Hampshire for our Understanding Canine Behavior workshops. And did I say back in Florida in February? I don't know. Yeah, so we're all over the place. Might have something set up in California too for 2017. I'm not really sure. Let's see what else. Yeah, so like anywhere within like the States or even like New Jersey or Long Island and stuff or the Bronx or the boroughs, that's like our backyard. So that doesn't even really count as like traveling. Let's see. Last, Piluperto. Hey, first, thanks to the amazing info on every episode posted. I have an Australian cattle dog, 11 months. We have our Australian Shepherd. 11 months, have some basic commands and walk every day, but my top objective is to get some walks without leash. Can you tell me some key points that I need to work to make this right? Some advice about the age and breed of my dog will work wonderful too. Well, first off, down. I can't move. Hey. Yeah. Good. So we just want to help him because it's better for him to hold it down. He makes better choices. Easier for him to settle there. Well, the breed is great. 4 to 6 months is where you can really begin to start 6 months like kicking it into high gear, but that you can certainly start training your dog from day one. You definitely want to remote collar train your dog if you want your 100%, reliability, because as good as you are and as great as a dog is, there's always a risk. So you want to be able to have an influence on a dog and have that influence be something that's known, so that if things are not going well, no matter where they are, you can still have a say and still guide them. So getting them familiar with what you're going to use in that situation is very important. What's up, buddy? Lay down. Nope. You're going to shift? Oh, you're a big boy. You're tired, huh? All these guys just finished playing a little bit, with the exception of her. She's up next. Yeah, so that's really, really important. You definitely want to utilize remote collar. What I would suggest is visiting our YouTube channel. There are a lot of like old Periscope. Really, dude? Hey, down. You're good. You just wanted to readjust, huh? It's a big boy. There are a lot of Periscope episodes back when we were archiving them to catch.me, which is a website that's no longer running. Everything got switched over to YouTube. So there are actually a good amount of videos that we've done on there where we've done it with sound boxes, and we've spoken about the order. We've done live stuff on like Periscope and everything, and Facebook Live, which we normally do on Fridays and Sundays, that have explained processes. And then on our YouTube, we have things that have actually showed the process with the sound box, so you know when the button's going on, when the button's going off, how we teach the behaviors before we go into using it for like corrections and stuff like that. So guys, that is it. This has been episode 45. Thank you so much for watching. We're gonna get the ball rolling. We'll see you guys next week for episode 46. Be on the lookout on Instagram for our Ask Your Dog Behavior Question Tuesday post here. See you guys next week.